Oh, shoot. I guess I'm live. First time hosting this, so I was not checking that out. Well, hello, everyone. Looks like nobody is in the chat with me. Give me a second to figure this out. It's my first time, like I said, hosting a meeting here. Yeah, so I'm not sure if anyone's like in a queue to join the meeting right now, but if they are, maybe put a message in the comments or something so I know and can let you in. Okay, I need to figure out how I can share my screen here too. All right, I'm just pulling up some documentation that I'm going to be sharing during this meeting. One item that I brought up actually at a previous meeting was a Google Sheet that I've created that breaks down PEPFAR's spending since 2008 to 2021 on circumcision related endeavors. So voluntary medical male circumcision and early infant circumcision. They're two main, they're the same pursuit for PEPFAR. The spending is in the same category, is what I meant to say. So I'm pulling up that sheet right now. I think a lot of people know that the federal government is currently spending money in Africa to circumcise Africans, but they don't understand at a granular level where that money is going on a country by country basis, and then how much money is going to this pursuit. It's a staggering amount. And I've calculated that through their official data. So I went to the PEPFAR website, and they have a data source that you can download. It's a CSV file, and you just kind of have to format it and filter it to get the data that you want. But I did that, and as soon as I figure out how to share my screen here, I'm going to show that to you guys. So here we go. Got it. Okay. Pulling it up right now. Next time I'm going to be a lot more prepared for this. All right. So this document here, I created from this sheet here, I created from a much larger CSV file that had a lot more data, but essentially excluded all the rows where the budget code was not Circ, right? Because Circ is the budget code for circumcision related spending for PEPFAR. That should be pretty straightforward. And so let's start breaking down this sheet and understanding what it is that we're looking at here. So this is a breakdown of spending on circumcision by PEPFAR by the country, or I guess in this case, region. I'm just going to get rid of these listings actually, maybe in a little bit. But let me zoom in. That's probably a little hard to see. And so let's start going down this list here. So we're starting out in 2009. At least that's where this sheet starts out. I'm not sure if money was being spent before then. Let's actually look up when PEPFAR was created. or was conceptualized here. So PEPFAR Wiki. Again, it's an acronym for the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. And it was an initiative that was created in 2003, launched by George Bush. Okay. And so they didn't start spending money on circumcision, really, at least publicly, that they made publicly available, until 2009. So we see here, they come out with a bang, right? $12 million in Kenya, circumcising Africans. Damn. They're not playing any games. You know, definitely less in other countries here. We see in Mozambique, 2 million, Zambia, almost 5 million. So serious money going to this, but it pales in comparison to what we're going to see here relatively shortly. So in 2010, relatively stable, not much of a increase here in spending. For all countries. Actually, I think it might be exactly the same in every country. Let's see. Yeah. So actually no difference in spending between 2009 and 2010. In 2011, we start to see it ramping up a little bit. Not too much though. Right, some definitely jump up, like in Uganda, from 1 million to 7 million. So this is serious money here that we're spending. Then in 2011, still pretty stable, I'd say. However, things really start ramping up in 2012. Where's 2012 right here, this column. We see, dang it. So in, is this, man, that's really hard to navigate. Yeah, in South Africa, you can see this row here. It jumps up to 19 million. So obviously more than doubled. And then though, the jump from 2012 to 2013 is staggering, right? A 50 million increase in spending. So this is a lot of money going towards these circumcision campaigns in Africa. It's a lot of US tax dollars being spent on circumcising Africans. So I'm not comfortable with this at all. If you're a United States citizen and you're not comfortable with this, we need to be having this discussion. I mean, this is disgusting to me. I mean, that's one way to phrase it. I think it's unethical. I think it's very wrong. I think it's this honestly, like colonial type of mindset. Everything we're like taught to recognize and, we're supposed to have this framework for things like this where this isn't acceptable to do, where we go into another country and start promoting tissue excision surgeries on men's penises in Africa. That there's just something very wicked about that. So I don't think, even if the risk reduction was 100% for all sexually transmitted diseases, I don't think you should ever be promoting genital modification surgeries for health reasons as a type of protective strategy for diseases at all. I don't agree with that at all. And I don't think the government and the state should be supporting it. I think this tissue and these structures are very valuable for men, and that like specialized sensory sexual tissue should not be promoted as in the effort to reduce disease transmission ever, even if they were 100% right, which I think can also be very, very hotly contested and is. I don't think even in the case where there was 100% risk reduction should this ever be promoted, especially in the way that it is in Africa, where they're like rounding. This is not a joke. I mean, or this is not inaccurate. They're like going door to door and knocking on people's homes and trying to solicit circumcision of them. They're driving around in buses, rounding up juveniles and bringing them to circumcision clinics and circumcising them in mass. It's like mass campaigns to circumcise Africans. And the way they're conducting them is very unethical in its own right. Like the way they're promoting this surgery in Africa it's very concerning. Isn't even the right word for me. But anyway, I'm going to move on from that for right now. I don't really have my thoughts fully put together on that yet. I'm just kind of spitballing here. But anyway, we then go to 2014, and we can see it definitely dropped in South Africa, I believe was that country. Yeah, which. So I wonder what happened there. But we can see it's raising in other areas, so it's kind of all over the place here. But anyway, let's zoom out for a minute. Let's calculate how much was spent in total for every year and for every country. So we'll do that over here in this column, or maybe one over. So what we're going to do is sum up all the cells here. So I think it's going to be equal sum, and then I need to select this cell to this cell. Oops. It's unfortunate. Okay. All right, what is it? It's D3 to, there we go. I haven't, it's totally failing here. Alrighty, so D3, all right, D3 to P38. So what we get, let's just copy this value and paste it right here. We're just going to paste the value only, and then that is not correct, actually. So I have D3 to P38. Well, I'm not going to spend too much longer on this, but I know what the value is. It's 1.8 billion, but I don't know why it's not calculating that properly. There we go. Copy this, paste the value right here. I'm going to zoom in. So what we have is 1,826,000,000. Right, that's how much PEPFAR has spent on circumcision campaigns since 2009 to 2021. So to me, that's an incredible amount of money that our federal government is spending. I don't like that my money's going there as a U.S. taxpayer. It's the last place that I'd ever want my money to go to. I think this is an atrocity that's taking place in Africa, and I think we need to be having this conversation regularly and getting that narrative out there that we're not comfortable with this as U.S. citizens. This does not represent us. This is not where we want our money going. Alrighty. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And I'm going to look at the next thing that I'm looking to cover here. Yeah, if no one else is gonna join this meeting, then I might wrap it up here pretty quickly. I don't have too much to present. I wanted to present that PEPFAR sheet that I put together, but I wanted to have a discussion with other people on the situation or the developments that are happening in Denmark, and just have like an organic conversation on that. But I don't see anyone else that's interested in joining here. So I will maybe just give a little update on that for people who maybe aren't aware of what's going on in Denmark in relation to infant circumcision. So, to the best of my knowledge, this is my understanding of the situation. I was looking to have a conversation because I wanted to kind of clear up a few things. It's difficult to interpret this situation from the United States as an English speaker, because I'm reading a lot of posts on social media, and a lot of content can translate into English, but it's oftentimes not fully clear to me what the situation is, and there are some things that get lost in translation, and there's actually just a lot that is presented in general. So even if you are a native speaker in Denmark, there's just so much information that it's easy for it to get lost. So a while back, I really could be totally wrong on this, but a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago, an intactivist organization in Denmark called Intact Denmark tried introducing they tried introducing a citizens initiative to get the criminalization of routine infant circumcision added as like an agenda item to their parliamentary discussions, I believe is what the situation was. But if anyone in the comments wants to chime in, I'd love to have that clarified for me. So anyway, they put forward this citizens initiative, like they had to collect a certain amount of signatures, I think. And then the parliament needed to address this because enough signatures were collected. The parliament had to address this issue. But I think what happened is somehow they were able to not discuss the issue, or the prime minister intervened and said, this is not going to be something that we're discussing, Matt Frederickson. I'm realizing right now as I'm explaining this that I really need to do some investigatory work into this and like create documentation that I can share with other people. I'm going to actually stop even trying to explain that situation because I'm realizing that I don't have the full story, and I'm not just going to try to bullshit my way through this right now. I think it's very important that we all understand this as American intactivists and just the global intactivist scene in general. This is actually a very important thing that's going on in the Nordic region right now, particularly in Denmark. They are potentially very close to legislative action being taken on this, and Intact Denmark is an organization that should be on everyone's radar right now. They're doing excellent work in Denmark, and they're interfacing with politicians on this matter. However, one area for growth, I think, for them is creating more content for their American audience here. So they have a private Facebook group where things are shared from time to time. so you can understand kind of better what's going on with their organization. But I would like to see more video content and text written content for the American audience, obviously because it would help me out a lot. But I think in understanding what's going on over there. But I also think it could be potentially very advantageous for Intact Denmark, because there is a lot of American intactivists and global intactivists that are very, very interested in what's going on and actually would love to support in any way that they can. But they're not really leveraging, or Intact Denmark is not really leveraging kind of their international audience right now, I believe, as well as they could be. So I would love to see them start creating some content for the American audience, and also make it a lot more straightforward for someone to donate to their organization who is from America or just internationally in general. Right now, their payment processor can only facilitate payments, I believe, from EU credit and debit accounts. So I had to personally reach out to Intact Denmark and coordinate with individuals from their organization to give me like a PayPal link so I could donate. I think that's an area for potential improvement, is making it a lot easier for people to donate who are outside of the EU. Some minor things. Other than that, I'm really impressed by what Intact Denmark is doing right now, and I'm looking to support them more. I'm a member of the organization myself. I think it was like $30 a year. However, I would like to donate more, but I don't even know how. I don't even know how I can donate more to Intact Denmark. I tried going on their website, and there's no like donation portal. It's only exclusively becoming a member. So I think that's also kind of a low-hanging fruit that they can begin targeting. I'm going to stop going off on this analysis of Intact Denmark right now. But I do think it would be appropriate to facilitate donations outside of just becoming a member as well. But I think that then if you're going to donate, I think you're going to want to better understand Intact Denmark's project pipeline right now. Like, what is it that they're actually actively working on? And what are they looking to do in the immediate future, and in the next couple months, and in the next year? I think there's a vague understanding of that among people who are heavily involved in that organization right now. But the average person, I think, that's not very concrete for them. So I would love to see a kind of an outline of what it is that they're looking to accomplish. And maybe that's already available and I just haven't come across it. But anyway, I'll stop focusing on Intact Denmark right now, and just kind of discuss the overall situation in Denmark from my optics and my view. So I'm not necessarily saying, my take on this is 100% accurate, and I'm actually, completely open to be proven wrong. And I'm speaking on this from a position of very likely not a complete understanding. So I just want to be transparent about that. So anyway, back to that original story that I was breaking down. When Intact Denmark gave that proposal, and I'm not sure if they were the ones that actually delivered the proposal for like a citizens initiative or something like that. But they were certainly the ones that were involved in coordinating it to some degree. There was a lot of pressure, though, on these parliamentary members to not discuss this issue and not just not take legislative action on it, but not even have it be brought up as a discussion topic that they can have. And that pressure came from religious special interest groups, America, and Israel. So American government officials got involved in the Danish parliamentary process, which isn't like inherently a negative thing, in my opinion. You know, there's foreign interactions all the time where they're, you know, we're looking to influence other countries, they're looking to influence our country. That, I don't think that's inherently wrong on its face. But you know, as an American, I feel like this does not represent me. I'm not comfortable with a government official going to Denmark and lobbying for infant circumcision, to have that persist in Denmark. It needs to be known, you know, that doesn't represent all Americans, and I don't want that to happen. I think we need to be discussing this as well. Is like, we need to be honest and say our country is a huge supporter of circumcision and promoting circumcision and keeping the practice of infant circumcision alive and well. You know, and they're seeing that in Denmark right now, as you know, we're applying an incredible amount of pressure. There was actually a direct some ambassador, or I'm not entirely sure who the individual was, but they reached out to Intact Denmark and tried to get them to not move forward on the citizens' proposal. Like, they directly reached out and said, what the quote was like, what will it take to get you to drop the proposal? So they're looking to do anything they can right now to get involved in this. And I think the first step in combating that is to start speaking about it, you know, among yourselves, among friends, among family, among other intactivists. This needs to be commonly known among intactivists right now, especially US citizens, is how involved we are in the legislative process in other countries in regards to infant circumcision. Like, we get intimately involved in this, very intimately involved in this process. And I'm not comfortable with that at all as a United States citizen, at all. Anyway, Israel is also involved in this, the Israeli government. It's very likely that US-based organizations like AIPAC, the ADL, probably have a very intimate involvement in this entire process. And right now, the Danish politicians, what they're saying, the reason that they're not interested in entertaining the citizens' proposal, or the two major parties in Denmark right now are not interested in engaging on this, even though a majority of the citizens believe that a ban or criminalizing this practice is the way forward and would vote on that, or would support that if it was presented. They're not moving. The parliamentary members, or the two major parties, I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, they won't engage on this because what they're saying is that Denmark has a special relationship with the Jews in their country, and that this would be a grave infringement on Jewish rights, or religious rights. But some are interestingly focusing exclusively on Judaism. And one specific politician or parliamentary member in Denmark even said that, you know, there needs to be special consideration for Jews and not Muslims. And so she supported a ban after 8 days. She supported a ban after, you know, the time when Jews typically don't circumcise, right? So after 8 days, they typically circumcise on the 8th day itself. So I honestly think that doesn't even make any sense, though, because, you know, okay, what happens if the baby doesn't get circumcised on the 8th, but they're still Jewish? Like, they can't do it on the 9th day. I mean, it just, it doesn't even make any sense on many different levels. But yeah, anyway, it's a very alarming situation that's going on over there. There's an incredible amount of foreign interference, and the rationale that they're using, just, it's very concerning. They're saying essentially, like, we need, because people of the Jewish faith were subjected to an atrocity in the past, that gives them like a special consideration to commit an atrocity now. I mean, it's so paradoxical. It would be comical if it wasn't such a morbid situation. So, that's a terrible breakdown of the situation going on in Denmark right now. I'd love in the future to be much more educated on it so I can speak about it a lot more fluently. And I'm not just trying to come up with these thoughts on the fly. And so for the next meeting, I think I'm going to have some more documents put together and some more items to present on the situation in Denmark. And I'd love to have a speaker, an intactivist Jewish speaker who can comment on the situation and give their perspective on this, and talk about, maybe what their Jewish intactivist groups are doing to tackle this situation. Because I think they're the people who identify as Jewish intactivists. I think they understand best how to crack this code. And I don't have enough conversations with Jewish intactivists, to be honest with you. I'm looking to have a lot more and start understanding better how to present this to Jewish individuals, and then also, what is understanding better what it's going to take to overcome this significant hurdle here, because the reality is these religious special interest groups and the pressure from the United States, which is also probably coming from religious special interest groups, right? So let's be honest, the internal pressure from the United States is probably coming from religious special interest groups that are exerting pressure on the government to have diplomats in Denmark lobbying on behalf of religious rights. So I think that's a very concerning development, and we need to begin understanding how it is we're going to overcome that, because they're very successful, and they're very well coordinated, very well organized, and have a significant amount of resources at their disposal. It seems like an unlimited amount of resources actually at their disposal. What we're up against here is really something profound, and I don't think it's a straightforward solution at all, obviously. However, in Denmark, their citizens are like, I read these Facebook comments, and they're so aware. No one's getting fooled by this at all. They're like, look, this is, the overwhelming majority of comments from Danish citizens on this are like, this is genital mutilation. How is this practice still alive? No, religious rights never supersede the child's rights ever. And so morally and ethically and logically, they have a robust enough framework that they know this does not fit within that. They're very aware, and they're wondering what's going on. And they're understanding now. There was this program, the Danish parliament or the Danish government once a month, or I can't remember, maybe once a week. I think it is once a month though. They'll do like a breakdown, like a news segment or a video segment on political issues or issues impacting Denmark. And in the previous episode of that, there was a, infant circumcision was brought up. It was like the largest segment of the whole program, I believe. And they went into depth and detail on it. And after that was released, and it really got into the U.S. and Israel's involvement and the religious special interest groups' involvement in the Danish political process. And after that episode had concluded, there was a lot of chatter on social media related to that specific segment. And a lot of Danes were blown away by the involvement of the United States and Israel and these religious special interest groups. They couldn't believe it, right? They're like, this is a significant amount of foreign interference. And how is it even swaying the politicians when the majority of our citizens feel much differently? They were questioning, like, this democracy is not really working if the majority of citizens feel a certain way, but the minority position is winning out for reasons that in their minds can't be justified. This is a very clear example of a democracy that we hold to the highest pedestal being severely impacted by foreign interference. And it's very concerning when such an overwhelming majority of the citizens are interested in criminalization. It would be one thing if it was like less than 50% and, there was foreign interference. But the fact that there's a majority of citizens that want to see this criminalized and the foreign interference is winning out here and pressuring the politicians to remain silent on this issue, it's not even necessarily remaining silent, they're condoning it. Like, they're condoning an atrocity. And the worst part is these Danes that are doing this, that are condoning it, they know it's wrong. The majority of them, they're not even like fully trying to fool themselves. And you got to understand, they're like scared. I'm sure they're frightened and scared, actually. They don't know what to even say. They know how this is going to impact them diplomatically. They know how this is going to impact their country. And it's actually just a very unfortunate situation. But my position is that you always protect the rights of the child. And that's like the most important goal that the government has, is protecting children and people from physical harm and physical violence. So we got Bolt Clan here. Using feminism about normalizing normal bodies can help people understand, and you won't be silenced as long as you say it at the beginning. I'm not actually fully understanding what that means, but if you want to leave another comment and kind of break it down, I'd love to hear it. Using feminism about normalizing normal bodies. Yeah, I don't necessarily see how feminism is going to be useful in that specific context, but I'm interested in hearing more. It's unfortunate that no one else joined. His body, his choice. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that people bring up, is kind of the consent component of this conversation. I obviously think that's very important, right? Consenting is a critical component of why routine infant circumcision should not persist, is because the majority of, or all infants are not consenting to a very serious modification of their body. But that's not primarily the reason that most men who identify as victims of this are upset. From my perspective and my optics and my anecdotal kind of experiences, and including my own experience myself as someone who identifies as having been violently genitally mutilated from infant circumcision, my major concern, and I'm just going to speak from my own perspective. I'm not even going to relate this to anyone else or try to put words in anyone else's mouth here. The reason that I'm been so impacted by having been circumcised as an infant it's not because my consent was violated. That definitely bothers me, but it's not what causes this chaotic, terrifying type of suffering that I experience very regularly. That comes from having this anatomical loss on my body and being subjected to a violent alteration or modification of my genitals. So I've watched infant circumcisions, right? I've found publicly sourced material intelligence on this. And it's very clear to me that this is an incredibly violent act. It's profound violence. And even if a good amount of local anesthetic is used, right, and it's relatively numb in that area, I know that wasn't the case for me at all. But even if that was the case, the child goes home with this egregious wound on their penis. Like that's painful for a long time. That's terrible suffering. That is terrible, heinous, wicked suffering. Why is that never considered? Why do we just think about the immediate operation and not think about what happens afterwards? Imagine that type of trauma, that type of wounding as a fragile infant. It's just a chaotic hellhole suffering for this child. And how do you think that impacts the developing neuronal networks in their brain? And how do you think that just impacts the trajectory of their neurological development? Not everyone is going to be able to mitigate that trauma, as well as the other person. So that's obviously very concerning alone. But then, so a lot of men are, traumatized by that. When I think about that whole situation, dark, very deep feeling that is overwhelming. It's just like I've described it there, very chaotic, overwhelming type of feeling of sexual violation. Like, don't tell me it's not a sexual violation when it's my sex organ. Are you serious? I hear a lot of people, like even intactivists, like, oh, it's not a sexual violation though. Yeah, it is. It's my sex organ being mutilated. So that's definitely a sexual violation. So that's a big concern for me. The consent, right? That's way far off in the background. When you get, if you got stabbed as a child, you wouldn't be like, oh, my consent was violated. You wouldn't give a shit about that. That wouldn't be your concern. Or if you got any other type of injury as a child, you would not be upset that your consent was violated. So I can't speak for all men. I'm only speaking for myself here. The consent part is way off in the background. It's it's feeling like I was violently sexually assaulted. That is crazy, chaotic suffering to understand that and to know what happened to you like that. It's dehumanizing. It's destabilizing. I don't feel like a citizen of a country. I have no legal framework to do anything. I got violently assaulted sexually, and I can't, and I have that's a terrible feeling. I feel oppressed. And then it's the anatomical loss as an adult, during sexual acts or masturbation or anything. It's very clear how this sensory loss has impacted me. It's very clear to me that I'm missing important specialized anatomical structures like my prepuce, my frenulum, the ridged band in the prepuce as well. This is like inches of tissue, of this erogenous mucosal membrane tissue that has a functional purpose on my body. It's a radical thing to do. There might be people out there that are comfortable with this. I don't know why anyone would assume that's my mindset, though. This is like a totally alien, radical thing to do to my body. I'm not a penis mod kind of guy. So now I have extreme body dysmorphia disorder, and I have deep sensory loss in my genitals. That's as clear as if I had like one arm. You would know 2 arms is better. That's how obvious it is to me. I have no idea how a man could have what was done to me and not be upset by that and not feel like this was a loss. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of maybe women as well. Like, if you had a genital operation that removed a significant amount of structures and tissue from your genitals, would you be, how would you feel about that? So I think a lot, in the United States, we've been conditioned to think this is some loose extra skin when it's like critical. It's, obviously you can still sexually function after the removal of it, but it's a very altered sensory experience. And that's overwhelmingly terrible for me when I have to deal with that. Like, it's impossible to communicate as well. Like, I'm struggling right now to even put into words, and it sucks that it's all dependent on how I can communicate this right here in the moment. But like during sexual activity, I understand. Like, as I'm having sex with women, I understand what I'm losing, and I like get sad and think like there are times when I'm having sex and I don't feel anything at all except discomfort. Like that's an overwhelming sense of dread and loss and chaos and fear. When it's supposed to be this like beautiful moment for me, it's pain and suffering, and it's very intense. That's not commonly known to people. And certainly it's not necessarily always that way. But even when it isn't, it's still severely diminished. And my whole sexual experience is like inking out 1 second of pleasure. That's not what, during orgasm, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's more of like an urge than a pleasurable sensation. Except for a very brief experience. That is such a loss for me. And I'm going through the process of restoring. It's going to take me like a decade. And I personally believe the properties of the restored tissue, they don't match at all the properties of the tissue in its natural organic state. So that's depressing for me. And just knowing I'm just not somebody who can ever be comfortable with a genital operation. You see, I'm not even going to wad into this, but yeah, I'm not even going to get into that, actually. Got to know what to talk about and what not to talk about. But yeah, I wanted to explain that suffering and explain to people that there's a large body of men that suffer terribly on a daily basis because of this. And I'm in that bracket now. I'm trying to navigate away. I'm doing a lot of things to mitigate the trauma. But this sense of loss and this body dysmorphia disorder that I have has completely derailed my life. Absolutely, completely derailed my life and the trajectory of my life, and the overall kind of vibe of my life, and my social interactions and things like that have been severely impacted by this trauma. And there was a time when I even thought myself, I'm like, why am I getting? Oh, Tavis says, have you expressed this to your father? Yeah, I have, actually. Yep. Yeah, he's in agreement, with what I'm saying. So he understands how this impacted me. He regrets doing it, and feels very strongly about it. So yeah, I presented the conversation to him, and I think I'm able to be very transparent and vulnerable with people. Obviously, I'm on here on a live stream right now talking about intense circumcision grief and trauma. So when you're at a point when you can be really vulnerable on this, you're able to. You say, I was just curious because I saw the video with your mom. Yeah. Yep. No. Yeah. I'm definitely open with my dad as well. Not as much as with my mom. To be honest, I think I have a easier time talking about this with my mom than with my dad. It's a lot more uncomfortable talking with my dad about this. Yeah. So you're saying definitely restore. Or the red blue belt here is saying you're not alone. I'm angry about this every day. Oops, I didn't mean to show that one. Definitely restore. I've done it. It helps a lot. Yeah, I'm in the process of restoring myself. I can only do manual restoration right now. I have a DTR actually, but I don't get a very good tug with it right now because I was just cut so tight. I'm definitely at a CI1 level. However, I'd say I'm like at a CI 1.5, 1.6 now since I've been restoring for about 6 months, right? I've been restoring for 6 months and I've grown like a millimeter of tissue. I will say that like millimeter of tissue that I've grown has like significantly increased the mobility, which is where like all the sensation now is going. It's crazy how 1 millimeter of tissue has already impacted my sexual experience so significantly, and it's actually just incredibly concerning that it's now I'm even more concerned about how this impacted me. It's not even helping at this point in time. It's making the situation even more concerning for me, more obsessive about it because I'm realizing how much I've actually lost as I'm going through this process. So here we go. Bolt Clan here says, I put the link for the feminism Instagram post. People don't understand what foreskin and a frenulum is, and most of the time they remove shaft skin in infants. It's more damaging to be done as an infant. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I really think that a typology system needs. We have the CI index, but maybe there needs to be more effective terminology here. I would call what I had. I'm trying to find the most accurate term possible, like a full sleeve ablation circumcision, right? Because you look at the infant's penis, and it's really strange, actually. The structure is like different. The shaft is like just as big as the gland. But on an adult's penis, that's really nice. The shaft is like 2 or 3 times bigger than the glands. So what's happening is the foreskin is like cocooning way above the glands on an infant. It like goes into this cocoon way above. And so in order to remove into the glands, you have to remove the entire mucosal membrane like skin system on the penis to expose the glands on an infant. So that's why a lot of them are very invasive, because in order to fully expose the whole glands, which is like, fuck, man, the outcome that they're looking for, that's just so vile. It has to remove a ton of fucking tissue to have that full exposure of the glands. That's a very difficult reality that I've come to understand, and it only came after I watched enough infant circumcisions to know what was going on there. But anyway, yeah, it's like the majority of the mucosal tissue on my penis was removed. The majority of the erogenous tissue. That's not commonly known. This is the majority. This is a radical operation. This is a radical genital operation. Radical. And I'm downplaying it right now. And just functionally, it changes everything. There's no move. Now there's a little bit more movement, but this is where all the sensation comes from, is the movement of the mucosal tissue on the other mucosal tissue, like the glands is mucosal tissue. You wouldn't know it if you're circumcised because it's been so keratinized. The properties of it have changed. There's keratin proteins that are covering the tissue. It's not really even mucosal tissue, mucosal membrane tissue anymore from my optics. And so, not only is a ton of your remaining tissue is removed, then or your existing tissue is removed, then all the rest of the tissue is keratinized. So your remaining mucosal tissue is keratinized. So you have a ton of your mucosal tissue removed, and then the remaining amount is keratinized, whatever the word is. I'm definitely higher up on that spectrum of damage, for sure. I don't think every man's at that CI1 level with most of their frenulum removed. But I would describe my sexual experience right now as like largely completely muted. So, I want I don't necessarily want this myself. Other people need to understand why that is. It's not because I can't get an erection. It's not for some other, it's from the tissue loss. It's from the specialized erogenous mucosal membrane tissue. These are highly specialized components. The prepuce, the frenulum, it's unique sensory tissue that can stimulate like a neuronal reaction. Okay? It's not trivial loose extra skin. It's the exact opposite. This is like the primary functional part of my penis that is responsible for so much of the stimulation. It moves up and down, stimulating the whole organ. Not having that, it freaks men out, including myself. I'm freaked out. I'm like, where's my sensory skin system? It's, it's totally alien to me. This is a huge part of my body, a huge part of my sexual experience. I don't feel like I'm in my own body, or I don't feel comfortable in my own body because something was robbed from me. And even if this would have happened, it needed to happen like gangrene or something, I would still feel a terrible loss. If I had frostbite on my foreskin, I would still be upset the rest of my life over it. I would be able to understand it a lot better, or rationalize it a lot better. Or I think I would be able to potentially move on from that. But right now in my society, when everyone's, the response to this is unacceptable. And the reality is there's a ton of men just like me that we can't speak up. I hear them every day. I speak with men like this every day. They're horribly suffering. And the best way to describe it is like chaotic suffering. Not everyone, right? And everyone goes through different phases of this, but it's so difficult to speak out on this. It requires your ego to like just totally dissolve. So that not every man's going to go through that experience. What happened to me is I just started suffering so bad. I'm like, well, nothing can be worse than this emotional state that I'm in. Nothing could be worse than this. And that was the truth. That speaking out is easy because when you go through, very intense other emotions, this stage fright or it's nothing. It's nothing compared to that. So I'm going to read a few more of the comments here. I felt nothing when I first had sex, no sensation in the frenulum. But once I started restoring, I got back the smegma within a couple days, and later got the extra slack skin gliding over the glands. Yeah, I think there's a very, smegma is not understood, or it's seen as this inherently very negative thing or disgusting thing. And I'm actually trying to figure out what that substance is a little more myself. But I know that women, right? Women, or people who have vaginas, they produce a lot of like mucosal secretions, right? But none of us find that disgusting. No man is like, oh, it's disgusting when a girl gets wet. No man has ever said that. Well, no, maybe no straight man. I'm not even getting into this, but, women discharge blood from their vagina. I'm not trying to hate on women at all. I think this is a totally natural thing, and it needs to be respected and it needs to be understood. Absolutely. Respected and understood, zero shaming, encouragement to speak about these things. Absolutely. 110%. I'm a firm believer in that. Why is it that, mucosal secretions for a man is so stigmatized and their mucosal tissue needs to be cut off? Women have a lot of mucosal tissue as well. All the sensory tissue is mucosal tissue, mucosal membrane tissue, or the specialized like erotic sensory tissue. But so I think when people hear smegma, they're like, it's been so stigmatized, and it's just simply a mucosal secretion that, the fact that there's women who are shaming men for this doesn't make any sense when they're, they need to take a look at their own genitals for a moment and understand that, they're discharging blood they're discharging uterine wall lining is coming out of their vagina at times. So, that needs to be respected and not shamed, but the same thing needs to apply for men. So anyway, I'm going to not go too deep down that. I'm going to read some more of the comments. 4455 Buick. Thank you. I've been restoring for 28 months now, and I'm completely covered when flaccid. Wow. So you started at a CI1 too? Can you comment that? A CI1? That's pretty impressive. So this gained from no slack skin when erect. Wow. Yeah, can you kind of break that down a little more? That's unusually quick, I'd say. But I honestly can only draw from anecdotal understanding. All right, well, the last thing that I wanted to cover, and then I'm going to wrap things up because I don't have too much else to talk about right now. But what I want to highlight is something that I feel very strongly about that I haven't really found a good way to pitch yet. And I don't think a lot of activists, this is on their radar right now. But I would like to start introducing to intactivist conversations solutions for men that who identify as victims and who feel mutilated by this. How can we move forward, or who's responsible for this? First of all, that's the first thing that needs to be established here. Is where does the responsibility lie? The scenario in which nobody is responsible and there's no type of accountability from anyone on this, and it's just like, you were mutilated and you can do about it, that just doesn't compute for me. I'm not sure where other men are. I see somebody say, I'm assuming you're Carter, but are you restoring too? No, that's not me that's commenting there. But anyway, yeah, so what I wanted to discuss was potential involvement of the federal and state governments and potentially medical institutions as well in a process of like truth and reconciliation. So obviously this is a much more long-term goal, but I'd like to see the conversations start happening within intactivism, because intactivism right now is a movement that's focused on children's rights, which is very interesting because there's also a lot of existing victims in the movement. So there's a lot of people who feel genitally mutilated by this and believe that the condonement by the state and the federal government is an unacceptable level of ignorance. And that there is responsibility here for having such a negative impact on our lives. There's a collective responsibility there. And so I personally would like to see the federal government and state governments as well involved in a quote unquote truth and reconciliation process in which they unmask this for what it is, change policy, issue apologies, and we can have a legitimate conversation on this. In addition, though, I want the federal and state government to invest in restorative and regenerative medicine. If there's any chance at kind of expediting this restoration process, because right now we haven't figured out, in my opinion, the optimal way to induce mitosis for this genital mucosal membrane tissue, like the devices right now, and the techniques, I believe, can be significantly refined, potentially entirely new novel methodology could be applied to increase the rate of mitosis 100-fold, right? I think right now these devices, the tech in them, or how we're doing this hasn't evolved in a significant amount of time, and I'd love some medical engineers to get involved paid for by the federal government, who has literally condoned an atrocity on its citizens. So there is absolutely some collective level of responsibility. If we were like some dirt poor country, then this would be another conversation. We're spending $1.8 billion circumcising Africans. You're saying we can spend money rounding up Africans and circumcising them, but we can't spend money on restorative. Then people get up in arms when we talk about restorative justice for men who were literally mutilated in a country that condoned it. Is that position? You stand on no ground if that's what you're saying. You just stand on absolutely no ground at all. Although I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be that direct, not necessarily that direct, but I'm willing to change my opinion, right? That's how I feel right now, and I let my emotions kind of speak out there. But that's how I feel, right? I feel betrayed. Completely betrayed. I feel like an atrocity was committed against me and many other men. And I think the federal government should absolutely, and I think people should be advocating for that and understand why we feel this way. You shouldn't do it because we're asking for it. You should pursue that because that's the right thing to do, and you should know why that is. So I think the federal government, if they got involved and funded restoration advancements, there could be significant improvements there in the process, and also funding or for restoration devices for men and things like that, but also funding into regenerative medicine as well. So exploring the possibility of regenerating these structures like the prepuce, like the frenulum, like the ridge band, and then like surgically implanting that tissue on men. So right now, that regenerative process is really still in its infancy and would require, to be frank, like a very concerted effort by very large entities to actually bring that to fruition. Probably hundreds of millions of dollars at the very, very minimum to even just get out an MVP of what this would be. And then there's serious concerns with scaling, because if they went with a decellularized ECM, extracellular matrices, they would have to acquire those from cadavers currently, so people that are dead. And there's just no way to really scale that appropriately for the amount of men that want to get this, but it's better than nothing. But there's another approach where you create the ECM, I believe, from 3D printing and then repopulate it with stem cells. If none of this is making any sense to you, that's, I'm not really breaking it down at an elementary level like I should be, and I don't really understand very well myself. But advancements in 3D bioprinting will lead to a real way to scale something like this for hundreds of thousands, or if not millions, of people. Anyway, though, I feel 100% confident saying I want the federal government to invest in this. Yeah, I absolutely feel like they have a responsibility in this. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. The whole country, it's our society. Our society has a collective responsibility in this. This is one of those things that you say no at all costs. We're doing something wrong right now. I think when we absolve ourselves from all responsibility, when you let a child be genitally mutilated in your society, would you even call that a society? That's like total anarchy. That is absolute chaotic anarchy. So I'm willing to go to, I'm not really getting into this too right now, but that's a very serious thing that I'm saying here. When you're condoning mutilating children, we have a very serious problem. Yeah. It's actually kind of frightening what this really entails. So need to be diplomatic on how we present this while conveying the seriousness of this to people. That this is not what you think it is, first of all. And the level of emotion that people who are opposed to this have, that needs to be understood why that is. Commonly among everyone in society. Anyway, I'm not trying to be so aggressive on this either to people. I think there is a good, you can definitely overplay your hand or speak too much as a victim or something like that, and kind of lose people in that, which has happened to me a few times actually. But someone says here, is that an attainable goal? Yeah, I think that's great. The red blue belt. So I'm not from the US, so just wondering. I think it'd kind of be unprecedented if that was accomplished, if the federal government invested in regenerative and restorative medicine for men that have been impacted by this. But it's what I just truly believe. So I'm going to keep pursuing it because I think that's the right way forward. And if that's not on my radar, I'm not pursuing that. I legitimately don't feel like a citizen of this country, and I feel totally betrayed. If that doesn't get accomplished, then yeah, that's how I'm going to feel about this situation. And so it doesn't really feel like an option for me to pursue it, to heal from this. That's a component of healing for me, is some type of justice and some type of acknowledgement and commitment to moving forward with the men on this who have been impacted. So that's a component of healing for a lot of us, is that recognition, because if this is recognized as genital mutilation, then that just comes naturally. If it's just been recognized that the United States systemically condoned in mass genital mutilations of infants, that level of ignorance, it doesn't excuse the impact on the person's life. So just because, which it's to me an inexcusable level of ignorance, if we're even saying that's what it is, but it's the person is still impacted. So you're driving on the street and you run a red light. You didn't mean to, but the other person, their arm got shattered. You're not, you didn't mean to do it. It was an accident, but you cost that person so much. That's how I look at this situation. Is if this was like a millimeter of tissue removed from my penis or a little chunk of my ear taken out, we wouldn't have a problem, guys. But when it's the total radical mutilation of my sex organ, that's when this conversation becomes much different. This is I'm positioning this as an atrocity. So when it's that high of a caliber, the conversation is a lot different in terms of restorative justice and if that's applicable or not. Okay, well, I got to go here in a minute, but I appreciate people being here. I oftentimes talk like I'm completely certain about everything that I'm saying, or I've made up my mind on everything, but I just want to let you guys know that I'm open to reflecting on anything. And if anyone has concerns with things that I've said or my viewpoints or things like that, just feel free to reach out to me and let's have a conversation. I know this can be a hotly contested thing. People have lots of different opinions on this, and I'm worried about speaking out in some regard, not usually in the moment, but I'm wondering, like, am I going to get canceled? Right? I'm already feel like a victim of genital mutilation. I'm like, if I speak out about this, is it going to cost me? It's scary. So I hope people keep that in mind as well, is that, this is really experimental for me. And if I say the wrong thing, I don't want it to cost me even more than it already has. So, alrighty. Yeah, ask anyone that's restoring. Yeah, and I could go on to this all day, but I'm I need to take a break. I get a really emotionally charged when I start talking about that. It's actually very interesting, and I'd like to understand it better. The psychological state that I go in is completely different. And I wish I could understand that better and understand how to control that better. It's a very involuntary thing. It's a triggering type of thing, a triggering type of mental or conversation to have. And I think it really impacts my ability to present information on this when your mind's racing like a mile a minute and you start feeling traumatized. Like I'm feeling traumatized when I talk. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. I need to just move on. So I'm going to read a couple more of the comments here. Have people stopped talking to you once they found out your position on this? Actually, no, they haven't. It has impacted the trajectory of my career, I believe, though, quite significantly. I'm an instructor right now at a coding boot camp, or like an intense style of learning. A boot camp, it's not like a military boot camp. They use that term because the learning style that the program uses is very intense. They throw a lot of material at you very quickly. So I'm an instructor at a coding boot camp. But I have been looking for a new job. And it was told to me by a couple recruiters that the content that's in the search engine results page when you search my name is concerning, or it's impacting my personal brand and my professional brand. So people go look up Carter Steinhoff, and there's videos of me speaking out on this, and it's just not the most inviting, appealing look for me as an employee, right? So they see talking about his infant circumcision trauma, and they don't think I'm going to hire that guy. It's actually the complete opposite. Even if they feel empathy and sympathy for me, it's not like, would anyone expect any different though? I mean, I knew that when I was making the videos. So I was totally aware that this was going to happen, and it did. So yeah, the reality is for men is that it's going to impact the optics of you from other people. So if someone can look up your name and they see this type of content associated with your name, that's absolutely going to have oftentimes a negative impact on your personal and professional brand. I don't think that's always going to be the case, though, but it is right now, and that's honestly very sad for me, and I'm upset by that. I'm really upset by that. That speaking out as a victim of something is costing me in this way. It's just an extra level. It's just an extra slap in the face. But yeah, the only thing I can do is move on. I mean, it's not like I'm in a terrible position. I still, am in a good spot right now. But I'm worried. What's my next job going to look like, and how is this going to impact the interview process for me? When that's the first thing all employers are doing is just looking up your name. So yeah, I would caution anyone who has a professional career and is looking to start speaking up about this. You have to understand how this can impact you. And I think a lot of men obviously do, and that's why they, are not saying anything. Is because it has an incredible impact on your professional brand and image. All right. Anyway, guys, though, that's enough for me. I hope to be better prepared during the next conversation, and also not get as emotional while I'm talking. But yeah, and I'm also looking for other people who want to be guests, even anonymously, on this. It'd be great to have people who'd like to chime in and have discussions on this, or just even listen in for the most part, and then chime in when something piques their interest. And I'm going to look to get some guests to actually commit. You know what would be cool is having my mom on. I'll ask my mom to come on. She provides actually pretty good insight on this, and has really good takes and perspectives on this topic. So I'd love to get her on, and she can speak from a position as somebody who regrets doing this to their child. And I'm not, I don't like shy away from how this impacted my relationship, because I can't. That's like a condition for having a relationship with my parents, is for them we need to be able to see eye to eye on this. But not only that, like, it does cause issues in our relationship. So I am very angry and upset with them, and they know that. So we just kind of live in that scenario where I'm not pretending anymore that we're on we're on 100% good terms. Because I just wasn't living in reality. It's very often that I get very viscerally upset with my parents, because I just believe I feel betrayed by them. It's less of a logical type of thought and more of just a pure emotion, where I just feel completely betrayed. They handed me over. They didn't think about this situation at all. They handed me over to someone for a penis modification surgery without thinking. They had no awareness. They didn't think to be concerned about this. I just felt like that they didn't care about me. And they're not even, they don't even try to defend it. Like, to put your child in that position, you have to just completely ignore your instincts, and you have to, like, dehumanize your child. And do I think that happened to me? Yes, absolutely, I do. And, my parents aren't even trying to deny that. So there are brutal realities to this, brutal truths to this. And I'm not letting, I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't exist to have a relationship with my parents. And they're willing to meet me on those terms. And I think that's the respectable thing that men should do on this is, if they feel angry and upset with their parents, first of all, they need to be upfront with them about this. But a lot of people just don't let the relationship, like, they maybe say it's okay, but that they have so much resentment in the background, and they're still mad all the time with their parents. So, and then they maybe try to hide it. I don't know if that's the case in every scenario, but that was definitely the case with me. I was developing like a split personality disorder. I would have all these negative feelings towards my parents, and then I'd see them, I'd meet up with them or something, and I would pretend we'd totally be cool. And I would be in this I would pretend to be something that I'd pretend the situation was something that it wasn't. But anyway, yeah, so, I don't want to exclusively talk about my trauma related to this. So I'd love to have other guests on next time, but that is kind of the case for me. And that's why I talk about my own trauma so much, is because that's like a huge part of my life right now, is being traumatized by this. So it's like a huge, unfortunate component of my life that impacts me pretty much on a daily basis, going on for 4 years now. And I've gone to incredible lengths to try to mitigate the trauma: intense physical exercise, meditation, making sure my diet's on point. Nothing is really resolving this trauma for me. People say go to therapy, which I've tried, and that's like sitting on a couch and discussing this issue with someone. Like, do we really think that's healing? I hate to dismiss that and belittle what that is, but that's not healing for me. That's not a healing therapeutic solution for me. It just doesn't even make any sense. Healing is having a support system, laughing, playing sports. It's all these other things. What it's not is discussing your problems on a couch. So, and another huge component of healing for me is having this being recognized for what it is and having people moving towards solutions. That's a critical component. That's not an optional part of healing at all for me. I'm not going to even be close to being quote unquote healed until this atrocity is criminalized and policed. That's the bare minimum. That is the bare minimum. So no, I'm not about the abandonment of infant circumcision. It's criminalization, not because I hate people, not because I want to punish people, because that's the necessary thing that needs to happen if you want to prioritize children's safety. And it should be known that it's very amazing that the men who feel traumatized are approaching it in this manner. This is like a declaration of war on a citizen when you do this. I don't think that's really commonly known and understood from that perspective, but that's how I feel. You know, this caliber of violence inflicted on you is, it feels like a threat. Feels like a very serious and alarming kind of declaration to me. It's a very threatening act of hostility is how I look at it. And then the men who feel that way, like, we're all pursuing diplomatic solutions for this, and moving forward with the law and through. That's never. No one ever says, you know, great job for doing that. You know, your country has just condoned an atrocity, even in activists. They just straight up condoned an atrocity on us. An atrocity was committed against us, and approaching it in a civil, diplomatic way. I think that's the way it should be pursued. And there's never any recognition for that either. Anyway, I'm going to stop speaking from a victim's perspective for the moment right now. I think it has its time and its place, but I can't just keep going on and on about that. I get caught in like a loop, and I can't navigate away from it. And I think identifying a victim and living as a victim, it's difficult to somehow when you do that, or when you stay in that state long enough, it's very difficult to pull yourself out. And feeling like a victim, you can't progress in your life. And it's not a choice for me right now, it's the issue, but I can I can work towards getting out of that mindset, even though I definitely feel like I am a victim. When you have that mentality, it's so dehumanizing and disempowering and humiliating. I don't even know how else to describe it, but it's very difficult to advance socially and professionally and in any way when you feel that way. Right now, it's really not an option for me. It's just that's the way I feel. And I think the conditions right now are, and how this is treated environmentally and by other people, it compounds this issue significantly. And if this was treated differently by society, I would be in a much better place right now. And I think a lot of men can share the same sentiment. Anyway, now I just am now rambling and going on so many tangents. Foreskin Love says, "You so cute. I just wish you were more black. LOL." Huh. I don't know what to make of that one. All right, guys. Well, I'm definitely going to head out now. I'm going to check out all these comments later. I wonder if I can save them. No, I can't. That's unfortunate. All right, guys. Well, peace out until next week, which I'll be on again. I don't think I'm going to be the host again. Oh, wait. There is one other thing. No, I'm going to save it for next week. There's some other stuff that I wanted to present. I'm going to send a link, though, to that PEPFAR circumcision spending Google Sheet that I put together. I'm going to share that on the Intact Movement or Intact Radio Facebook page a little later. All right, guys. Hey, well, interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward to next week. All right. Peace out. I always say that, and then I don't know how to cancel the stream yet. So, yeah.